You ever open a file you weren't supposed to find? No, I don't mean illegally. I mean just naturally there. Like a bruise you didn't notice until the pressure hit. That's how I found it. We were both working from home. 2 laptops, 2 coffees, 1 toddler currently passed out thanks to the magic of YouTube Kids and string cheese. It was a Saturday. She was in the kitchen yelling at her mother on speakerphone over whether we'd host Thanksgiving again. I was on her laptop because mine was updating. Yes, I know. Her laptop. But we're a finance couple. We've done our taxes together since we were 24. Same passwords, shared calendar, matching LinkedIn bios. That kind of annoying corporate romance where you brag about your 401k like it's a child. So no, I wasn't snooping. At least, not until I saw it. Untitled.xlsx. Now in our line of work, hers in corporate treasury, mine in risk compliance. A spreadsheet with no title is like an open wound with no bandage. Suspicious by default. It was buried 4 folders deep under her desktop's junk folder, the kind of place you send screenshots or memes you'll never look at again. But this file? It wasn't a meme. I opened it and immediately saw something that didn't make sense. Column A, initials. Column B, cities. Column C, dollar amounts. All in random intervals. $330.12. $515.90. $187.05. Then $3,200, bolded. No formulas. No context. But I scrolled down and there were dozens of entries. PF, Chicago, $840.75. RT, Boston, $1,520. DN, Houston, $3,200. Okay, maybe this was part of her project tracking? Travel reimbursements? But here's the thing. This file was last edited 2 weeks ago, and she hadn't traveled for work in nearly 4 months. So what was it? I closed it immediately when I heard her footsteps. She walked in holding a mug and a face that said she wanted to be anywhere else but in our kitchen. I handed the laptop back and said I needed to grab groceries. She mumbled something about oat milk. I left, but I didn't go to the store. I went to my office, opened a blank doc, and started listing everything I remembered from the file. Initials, cities, dollar amounts. Then I started cross-referencing emails, Outlook calendar entries, even her Instagram stories. PF, she was in Chicago that weekend for a conference. I remember because she posted a photo from the hotel gym. RT Boston. Client dinner, she said, but no mention of who. Then I saw it. DN, Houston, $3,200. And suddenly the air in the room shifted. Because DN matched the initials of her assistant. Or former assistant, I should say. Daniel N., 22, new hire from Texas State. He had joined her team straight out of undergrad. Bright kid, always overly polite. Used to call me sir when we crossed paths at company happy hours. But he transferred departments 3 months ago with 0 fanfare. No goodbye email. No team photo. Just gone. That same week. She had that random migraine on a Friday and stayed home, canceling a planned dinner with my sister. She said it was stress. Now I wasn't so sure. That $3,200 entry? What kind of travel expense is bolded and rounded? It wasn't just a number. It was a payout. Or a gift. I started going deeper. Logged into our shared Amex portal. She wouldn't notice. She only checks the statements when she's reconciling at month end. That's when I started finding the gaps. One charge from an upscale hotel in Dallas. Not under her name. Under a ghost card. Corporate travel proxy. 2 Uber receipts from Logan Airport to a bar near Fenway. Same timestamp she told me she had a girls' night. And worse, a payment from our joint account, labeled simply, Venmo, DN. She had paid him directly. Twice. The second one, $500. Memo, thanks again. You saved me. Saved her from what? I sat back and stared at the screen. I wasn't angry. I wasn't heartbroken. I was awake. See, people think betrayal comes with thunder. That it's this huge emotional explosion. But real betrayal? It's quiet. It slides in like a spreadsheet with no title. And now I had it. Not proof, not yet. But direction. And in my world, direction is everything. I went back to her laptop that night. Waited until she was asleep. Booted into guest mode. Reopened the file. This time I screenshotted everything. All 47 lines. Then I backed it up. Copied it to a drive she didn't know existed. And then, I created a folder. Labeled it simply, Audit. Because that's what this was going to be. Not revenge. Not rage. Just clean, quiet, professional dismantling. Finance style. To be continued. There's something beautiful about numbers when you strip away the stories people wrap them in. A number doesn't lie. It just sits there, smug as hell, waiting for someone smart enough to ask, "Where did you come from?" That Monday, while she kissed me goodbye and rushed out the door in heels and a silk blouse, I called in sick. Technically, I was out of office for medical, which was true, if you count psychological clarity as a condition. I had the house, the quiet, the full Wi-Fi bandwidth, and her old MacBook Pro, the backup one she hadn't used in months, still plugged in under the guest bed. She forgot I set it up. She also forgot it auto-synced to her cloud. I didn't need to break into anything. All I needed was patience and a good spreadsheet viewer. What I found wasn't just suspicious. It was operational. She had been running her own little financial shell game, right under her own firm's nose. The untitled spreadsheet wasn't a one-off. It was part of a trail. There were 3 more files, this time named innocuously. Gift log 23.xlsx. tr_notes_final_v2.xlsx. Accountables, q3.xlsx. And yeah, if you work in finance, those names barely raise a brow. But when you open them, it's like seeing fingerprints in blood. One was a list of names. No last names, just initials again. Matched to dates, transaction references, and what looked like memo notes. Things like cleared at front desk and no ID needed. Another had flight numbers, hotel chains, notes like confirm minibar credit and bill room to consultant's account. But here's where it got spicy. One line, buried halfway down the gift log, simply read, DN, Apple Watch, $399, avoid Amex. Avoid Amex. She wasn't just cheating. She was laundering the affair. I was numb for a second. Not because she bought some internal watch, but because she had the foresight to track it in code. She was balancing her betrayal like it was part of our portfolio. She always said her job was about trust and timing. Now I realized that was just a fancy way of saying, don't get caught too early. I took screenshots, backed them up to a private encrypted drive I stored inside an innocuous folder labeled budget_2016. Then I did what any good risk compliance analyst does when he suspects fraud. I ran a pattern. I took all the initials, compared them against our firm's staff directory, vendors, conference attendees, even some mutual LinkedIn connections. And there it was. 6 matches. 6 actual co-workers and contractors she interacted with regularly. 4 men, 2 women, scattered across different branches, different cities, all previously involved in some vague client relationship projects she mentioned offhand. But the key match was Daniel, former assistant, current ghost. When I checked his profile on the company portal, he was listed under leave of absence. Effective date? 3 weeks after the largest dollar entry in her spreadsheet. That $3,200 bolded line. It coincided with a team offsite she planned in Houston, one that was mysteriously rescheduled at the last minute due to vendor issues. The receipts told a different story. 2 first-class tickets booked under alias accounts. 1 upgraded hotel suite. No vendor meetings logged. But here's the real kicker. That week, her card was billed for a high-end legal consultation service in the same area. $750. Confidential retainer. No further breakdown. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just an affair. It was liability management. She was either paying for silence or preparing for fallout. And if she was preparing, so was I. That night, I didn't confront her. I made dinner. Spaghetti, garlic bread, poured her favorite wine, and asked about her day. She smiled, told me she was up for a promotion next quarter, said the regional CFO was stepping down and they were grooming her for the slot. I nodded, said I was proud. Then I asked if she ever thought about going fully remote. Why, she asked. No reason, I said. Just seems like less travel would be nice. She laughed, then said, you know I like the travel. It keeps things interesting. Right. Interesting. I poured myself more wine that I had no intention of drinking. That night, I stayed up and opened my own laptop. Started building something. A shell company name. Dummy domain. Offshore entity generator. All legal. All digital. It wasn't hard. Finance bros do this for tax reasons every day. But me? I had a better reason. By midnight, I had an account set up with a name nearly identical to one of her vendors. I created a transaction chain showing irregular payments tied to false invoices. All I needed was a little push, an anonymous whistleblower email to the firm's internal audit channel. Subject line: urgent, misuse of corporate funds, tied to SVP promotion candidate. Attachment: anonymized screenshots of the spreadsheets, filtered to highlight vendor fraud, not the affair. I didn't need her fired. I just needed her paused. Long enough for the real story to start bleeding out. Long enough for Daniel to be subpoenaed. Because you can't fake receipts. You can't code your way out of an audit. And you can't promote someone under investigation. I hit send, then closed my laptop. She walked into the room 5 minutes later, brushing her teeth. "You're up late," she said. "Work stuff," I replied. She kissed me on the cheek and crawled into bed. That kiss tasted like leverage. And I just cashed in. It started with a calendar change. Monday morning, she was supposed to have her executive review with the CFO, part of the final stage before promotions go public. Instead, she got a reschedule. Compliance delay, the email said. Pending routine audit adjustments. She didn't say much when she read it. Just made a confused sound with her throat, then shrugged. But I saw her fingers tighten slightly around her mug. People in finance learn early. Audits don't show up by accident. They land like sniper rounds. Slow, silent, lethal. I played it cool, kissed her on the forehead, and said maybe it was just a timing thing. She nodded. That same day, her Slack status changed to "in meetings all day." But her body language said something else. She came home tight-lipped. Didn't kiss me back. Didn't ask how our kid's math test went. And she always asked. Instead, she went upstairs, poured wine, and stayed silent for a full hour. I watched her through the doorway. The woman who used to talk nonstop about quarterly earnings and how optics are everything, now couldn't even fake a smile. Something was happening, and it was just getting started. The next day, she came home early, sat in the driveway for 10 minutes before walking in. No phone call, no explanation. I watched her through the blinds. She looked like someone trying to remember which wire not to cut. She walked in, set her purse down, and said, "They're doing a full review of our expense logs." I nodded slowly. "Why?" I asked. She hesitated. Anonymous flag. Something about vendor inconsistencies. They're cross-referencing all Q3 purchases. I kept a poker face. "That's rough," I said. "Yeah," she muttered, staring at her wine rack like it might contain answers. "It's probably just someone jealous, trying to stir up crap before promotions lock." Right. Except the only person stirring the pot was sitting across from her, calmly eating leftover rotisserie chicken. I didn't need her to confess. I just needed her to crack. And by Thursday, the first fissures were showing. She called in remote optional. Wore sweats all day. Barely touched her laptop. I worked from the garage, which meant I had full access to her inbox on the old synced MacBook. The HR calendar pinged, meeting request titled Preliminary Fact Review. It was internal language for, "You're not fired, but you're now officially on the radar." That same afternoon, she got a call from legal. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I saw her after. She looked like someone who just realized the parachute she packed had a ripcord made of paper. That night, she didn't sleep. Neither did I. The next morning was the worst for her, and the best for me. An all-hands meeting was scheduled. Mandatory attendance for her entire department. Subject line: personnel adjustment and transition notice. And right there, buried in the meeting details, audit team will be present. She didn't say goodbye when she left. She just slammed the door harder than necessary. Our kid asked if mommy was mad. I said no, just thinking about work. It wasn't a lie. At 10:42 a.m., I got the Slack leak. My contact from Risk, a guy I trained back when I was in the program, pinged me on Signal. "Bro, Daniel's filing a complaint. Like, sexual harassment complaint." HR just went DEFCON 2. I didn't react. Just typed back a thumbs up. Then asked for a timestamp. He sent over a blurry screenshot from a Teams call summary. Daniel's name. HR contact. Confidential HR doc watermark. That was enough. She wasn't just under audit now. She was radioactive. The 22-year-old assistant? He'd lawyered up. And suddenly, this wasn't about numbers. It was about power, reputation, and how fast a rising star could plummet when her gift logs became legal evidence. At 12:04 p.m., her name was quietly removed from the org chart's SVP preview list. At 2:13 p.m., her Slack status changed to out of office. At 4:07 p.m., she came home, and for the first time in 8 years of marriage, she didn't say a single word. Not hey, not bad day, not even a lie. She just walked in, poured half a bottle of wine into a glass, and sat at the dining room table staring at the floor. I watched from the kitchen, let the silence build, then walked over, calm as you please. You okay? I asked. She blinked. Then, finally, said something. They've put me on temporary leave, pending internal investigation. I nodded. That's serious. Yeah, she whispered. Someone sent them a file with all these spreadsheet logs. Anonymous. They said it looked like I was moving vendor payments to fake accounts. But I swear I wasn't. I track stuff. To be safe. Safe. That word. I could have laughed. Instead, I just said, why would someone do that to you? She didn't answer. She just looked at me, eyes wide, not in anger, in recognition. And for the first time, I think she realized exactly who had set the house on fire. She opened her mouth, then closed it, and stood up, walked upstairs, didn't come back down. I finished her wine, sat in her seat, and opened my phone. I had one more email to send. Just one. To a mid-level journalist I knew from undergrad. Subject, Senior VP at firm name redacted, accused of harassment by former assistant. Internal spreadsheets suggest financial misconduct. Anonymous source available. Attachment, redacted version of gift-log 23.xlsx. Because sometimes, destruction isn't enough. You want the crater to be visible. The article hit at 6:42 a.m., right as I was stirring my coffee, pretending to be surprised. Front page of the business section. Local, but big enough to ripple. Senior VP placed on leave amid internal audit and allegations from former assistant. No names in the headline. Legal's way of keeping the lid on. But the body of the article? It danced just close enough to the flame. Phrases like questionable vendor payments, unauthorized reimbursements, and gifts exchanged between supervisory staff and junior hires. Then the quote from an internal source familiar with the investigation, stating that anomalous entries in private spreadsheets triggered the audit. They didn't even need her name. The initials were enough. SVP, Treasury Division. Female. There were only 2 people that fit the bill, and the other one was on sabbatical in Italy. By 7 a.m., her phone was vibrating nonstop. Slack pings, missed calls, texts from numbers I didn't recognize. She didn't say anything, just scrolled and scrolled and scrolled. Then her hands went still. Someone leaked it, she said. I raised an eyebrow. The story. She nodded. Her voice was flat, lifeless. I took a sip of my coffee. Do you think they'll name names? They don't have to, she said. She wasn't wrong. In our world, perception is punishment. You don't need to be fired. You just need to be mentioned. And she'd been mentioned. She didn't go into work that day. Didn't shower either. Stayed in a hoodie, on the couch, silently tapping at her phone like she could undo the last 7 days through sheer force of thumb. I went about my day like usual. Took our kid to school. Did a load of laundry. Called my old compliance contact and asked if they'd seen the article. Oh yeah, he said, half laughing. They've already scrubbed her name from the company's social media. Someone on the PR team said this might get picked up nationally. I played dumb. Crazy, I said. Didn't even know there was an issue. Right, he replied. Must have been some shady vendor play. I mean, internal spreadsheets? That's cold. Yeah, cold. That night, she didn't come to bed. She stayed in the guest room, pretending to read, while her phone buzzed every 30 seconds. She told our kid she was on a work break. Said she might be going on a trip soon to clear her head. He didn't ask questions. Kids are good at sensing storms and deciding not to walk into them. By Thursday, the legal notice arrived. Registered mail. Heavy envelope. I set it on the table, unopened. She stared at it for a full minute before picking it up with both hands like it was radioactive. I asked if she wanted me to leave the room. She shook her head, but didn't open it until I was gone. When I came back, it was gone, buried, probably, or burned. But her eyes told the story. Whatever was in there was serious. Serious enough that she called her brother, a corporate attorney in D.C., and whispered into the phone like a teenager confessing to shoplifting. The next day, she packed a suitcase. Didn't say goodbye, just left a note. I'll be at the lake house. Please don't tell anyone where I am. I didn't. Why would I? She needed space, and I needed silence. I spent the weekend deleting old shared drives, changing passwords, rerouting the backup email on our family photo archive. Not to be petty, just efficient. I wasn't going to divorce her yet. That would come later. This part was about presence, letting her feel the vacuum of credibility, of comfort, of being believed. She'd spent 2 years sneaking behind backs, using spreadsheets like confessionals. Now those same files were turning into affidavits. That Monday, I got a message from a mutual friend. Hey, just checking in. Is everything okay with her name? Saw the article, heard rumors. I said she was on leave for personal reasons. Didn't confirm, didn't deny, just let the ambiguity do the damage. That afternoon, Daniel posted a cryptic Instagram story. Black screen, white text. Some things you bury eventually rise. Thanks to the ones who believed me. For hours later, the comments section on the article blew up. Anonymous tips, secondhand office gossip, and then a burner account claiming she offered gifts to more than one junior. None of it was verifiable. All of it was believable. That's how careers end in our world. Not with a press release. With silence. With rumor. With risk calculations. She finally called me Thursday night. Voice hoarse. Lake wind howling in the background. I'm sorry, she said. Not forgive me. Not, I didn't mean to. Just sorry. Like someone apologizing for missing a flight. I told her it was okay. That we'd figure it out. She cried. I didn't. When the call ended, I opened a new doc. Labeled it, Settlement Plan. Because the affair might have been emotional. But the aftermath? That was going to be logistical. It started with an email from her attorney. Clean signature. Neutral tone. Just a few lines. Our client is requesting joint mediation to discuss next steps regarding shared assets, custody considerations, and professional fallout mitigation. Please confirm your legal representation or direct line of contact. I stared at it. No mention of divorce. No apology. Just mitigation. As if this whole thing were a quarterly loss to be rebalanced. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I called Greg, the kind of lawyer who doesn't advertise online. Retired from corporate litigation. Spends his weekends fly fishing and tearing apart people like my wife for sport. We met for lunch. I gave him the file, a thumb drive labeled giftlog23.xlsx, plus a PDF printout of the HR email she received, and a screenshot of the article with her name softly underlined. He took one look and said, "You want to play defense?" I shook my head. No, I said. I want closure. Legal. Public. Permanent. He smiled. That, we can do. We sent a reply to her counsel the next morning. Simple, pointed. Mr. Me is open to discussion. However, due to the high-profile nature of your client's misconduct and pending internal investigation, all negotiations must be recorded, and no non-disclosure agreements will be accepted as part of any settlement package. Translation: we're not letting her bury this in legal concrete. The following week, mediation began. Virtual, of course. Cameras on. She looked tired. Older. Hair in a low ponytail. No jewelry. Her attorney did most of the talking. Mine, however, did most of the damage. Mr. Me is willing to forego any claim on your client's stock bonuses, Greg began, in exchange for full custody, the primary residence, and formal acknowledgement of reputational harm caused by the embezzlement investigation and related sexual harassment allegations. Her lawyer sputtered. There's been no formal conviction. There's been a published article, Greg cut in, and an HR leave of absence. Public enough. The rest was semantics. They tried to argue for shared custody. Greg reminded them of the lake house disappearance. The 6-day ghosting. They offered a buyout of the house. Greg countered with, you can't buy out something that's not yours. Not when it was purchased under a joint account, and one party has admitted, via voicemail, to fraudulent activity. They asked for supervised visitation. Greg proposed biannual updates through a family therapist, provided she's cleared by HR and no civil suit proceeds from Daniel. The final blow? A clause Greg added just before we signed off. All shared digital accounts, including cloud drives, banking logins, and synced calendars, are to be scrubbed. Password resets on both sides. And any device with crossover access is to be destroyed or surrendered. I didn't ask for that, but I appreciated it. It was like cutting the last string of a marionette that danced too long. After the call, she texted me. Just one line. Was it worth it? I didn't answer. I just screenshotted it, saved it to my closure folder, and went back to my coffee. By Friday, the paperwork was drafted. By Monday, she'd signed. She kept her name, for now, but lost everything else. The condo was mine. The kid, too. Her lake house. Frozen in litigation, pending IRS review of property value declarations. The firm? Still silent, but her Slack profile vanished. Her name, too, replaced with account disabled. I imagine her waking up every day now, checking LinkedIn, hoping someone forgot. They won't. I'm not done. Not yet. There's still Daniel's lawsuit. Still the offshore trail I left breadcrumbs for. Still the whispered rumor that she may have done this before. Another set of initials on that spreadsheet that didn't match any vendor. Maybe she'll get another job. Maybe she'll crawl back into obscurity. But in our industry, there's no such thing as a private disgrace. Just a quiet one. And quiet is what I do best. She didn't show up to court. Just dialed in. Muted most of the time. No camera. Just a glowing circle with her initials, floating in the corner of the Zoom screen like a ghost refusing to haunt properly. The judge asked if she understood the settlement terms. She said yes. Asked if she was under duress. No. Asked if this division of custody, property, and accounts was amicable. She paused. Then, it's equitable. That was her favorite word. Equitable. Not fair. Not right. Just balanced in some cold, spreadsheet way. I wanted to say something, but I didn't, because I was saving it. And what I was about to do next wasn't just equitable. It was surgical. See, there was one part of the story she never knew, because she never bothered to check the device I used to find the spreadsheet in the first place. It wasn't her laptop I'd accessed. It was mine. A clone desktop, set up months earlier for a side project we never really got around to, building a shared tax optimization model. Something that required synced files, shared folders, mirrored backups. She forgot we set it up. I didn't. So when she saved her coded spreadsheet to her desktop, it synced straight to mine. Automatically. Quietly. And when I spotted it, I didn't just look. I copied it. Analyzed it. Tied every dollar to a date, a hotel, a vendor name. Then I took it a step further. I fed the data, stripped of names, but tagged with initials, into an anonymized report. An internal white paper on fraud detection patterns. Submitted it to an ethics conference. Guess what? It got accepted. Titled, Hidden in Cells, Analyzing Coded Financial Infidelity Patterns in High-Tier Corporate Networks. I delivered it anonymously, with a voice filter and a shadowed profile. The attendees? Compliance officers, risk auditors, HR directors, people from her world, people who'd hire or fire. Her initials weren't in the paper. But the patterns were. The amounts. The timing. Any analyst with a pulse could reverse engineer it, especially the ones from our firm. 2 days later, Daniel filed his lawsuit. A very public, very detailed, very painful complaint, naming not just her, but the entire division for neglecting to protect junior staff from predatory incentive practices. The firm issued a boilerplate response, investigating, but behind the scenes, they were hemorrhaging. 2 other junior analysts came forward, neither of them connected to her, but both emboldened by Daniel's move. That's how scandal spreads. Not like a virus. Like wildfire. HR sent me a message. We'd like to speak to you about your original report. I agreed. We scheduled a meeting. I told them everything. Off the record, but thorough. How I found the file. How I verified the data. How I'd submitted the ethics paper to raise awareness. They thanked me. One of them said, "We may want you to consult on a broader compliance rebuild." I said I'd think about it. Why not? She burned the house. I may as well build the new one. A week later, she tried calling. 3 times. I didn't answer. She sent an email. "Please don't involve our son in this. He doesn't need to know everything." I replied, "He already knows what honesty looks like. I'm just making sure he remembers it." She hasn't responded since. That was 3 months ago. Now, I'm quiet again, but not out. I'm helping 3 other firms build internal detection systems. Based on the paper. Based on her spreadsheet. I don't name her, but her signature lives in every cell of that data model. It's poetic, really. She built the system that caught her, and now it's catching others. That's what happens when your affair starts with a spreadsheet. It becomes a case study, a warning, a lesson. And me? I'm just the guy who read the file and pressed save. Subscribe to the channel